I still remember the day I walked into that care home in rural Michigan. It smelled like fresh linen and soup, quiet except for the soft hum of a TV in the corner. I saw Martha, 82 years old, sitting alone by the window. She hadn't said much in weeks, but when the nurse gently leaned in and gave her a long, warm hug, something changed. Her eyes welled up. She whispered, "Thank you." That simple touch broke through what no medicine could, and I've been thinking about that moment ever since. See, after 70, the power of touch isn't just emotional. It's biological. It lowers blood pressure, strengthens the immune system, even calms the mind. But the sad thing is, in today's senior communities, especially across the US and Europe, physical touch has become rare. Too rare. And it's hurting more than we realize. If you're over 65 or you care for someone who is, stay with me. What I'm about to share might change how you see a simple hug. For good. And before we dive in, if you find value in these stories from real people, real struggles, and real healing, go ahead and subscribe to Elderly Reflect. Turn on that bell icon so you never miss a moment of elderly wisdom, senior health, and honest motivation that could touch your life or someone you love. You know, the older I get, the more I realize that the simplest things are the ones that matter most. A warm meal, a good night's sleep, and touch, especially touch. Most people think it's something for the young. Romance, affection, family gatherings, but after 70, it becomes something much deeper. Something we don't talk enough about, and yet it's one of the most powerful medicines we still have. So today, I want you to walk you through 6 specific ways touch heals us as we age. Not just emotionally, but physically, biologically. Each point backed by real stress and lowers blood pressure. There was a study at the University of North Carolina that showed even just a 20-second hug can lower cortisol levels, reduce heart rate, and bring blood pressure down. And that effect is stronger in older adults. You see, when you're in your 70s or 80s, your body responds to stress differently. A small spike in blood pressure can mean dizziness, fatigue, or worse. But gentle, consistent touch, it calms the nervous system, eases tension, and slows the heartbeat. I met Walter, a 76-year-old widower from Vermont, at a wellness retreat 2 summers ago. He told me, "I didn't know how much I missed being hugged until someone did it again." He joined a yoga class just for seniors, not so much for the exercise, but for the shoulder pats, the helping hands, the warm greetings. Over time, his doctor noticed something. His blood pressure had stabilized for the first time in years. "Better than any pill I've taken," he laughed. "That's not magic, that's biology, and yet we ignore it far too often." The second point I want to bring up is something scientists call skin hunger. That's the human need for touch. It's as real as the need for food or water. When someone's starved of it, especially seniors, their bodies and minds begin to suffer. Depression increases, immune function drops, pain becomes more noticeable, loneliness sets in deeper. I once visited a senior care center in northern France. The director, Marie, told me about a resident named Jacques. He was 81, no family, barely spoke to anyone. One afternoon, a new caregiver, noticing how withdrawn he seemed, sat beside him and gently placed her hand on his. No words, just contact, and for the first time in weeks, Jacques smiled. A small moment, but it sparked something. Over the next month, Jacques became more responsive, more alert. When asked about it, he said softly, "I forgot what it felt like to be human." That's skin hunger. You don't see it on the outside, but it lives in the silence, in the space where affection used to be. The third way touch heals is in promoting physical healing and boosting the immune system. It might sound surprising, but researchers have shown that physical contact, through massage, hand-holding, or even light hugs, can stimulate white blood cell production and improve recovery after illness. Touch boosts oxytocin and serotonin, which reduce inflammation and help the body repair itself. I remember Helen, a 79-year-old woman from Oregon, who had just gone through a difficult knee surgery. Her daughter visited daily and would massage her feet and calves gently as they talked. Doctors noticed her inflammation was reducing faster than expected. Helen told me, "It wasn't the pain meds that helped. It was her hands. I swear, her hands were healing me." She didn't mean it metaphorically. Her recovery outpaced others her age, and studies back it up. Touch therapy can strengthen the immune response, especially in seniors who often face immune suppression due to age or medications. Fourth, touch supports cognitive health and memory function. That's something not many people know. Touch stimulates the vagus nerve, which connects the brain to the body, helping regulate mood, focus, and even memory. For seniors, regular touch has been linked to improved mental clarity, reduced brain fog, and even delayed onset of dementia. There's a gentleman I met named Richard. 83 in Boston. A retired math professor, once sharp as a tack, but over the years he felt himself slipping. Names, numbers, dates. Then he joined a senior music group where, every week, they'd greet each other with a hand squeeze and close circle. It wasn't formal therapy, just friends showing affection. After 3 months, Richard said, "I don't forget my keys as often, and I remember more lyrics now than I did last year." His neurologist was stunned by his improvement. Sometimes we underestimate what the body can do with the right stimuli. But a warm touch, consistent and intentional, feeds the brain in ways pills never could. Fifth, touch strengthens emotional bonds and reduces loneliness, especially important for seniors living alone or in care homes. Isolation is a killer. It doesn't show up on blood tests, but its effects are just as real. And what's the antidote? Connection. Real physical connection. In a nursing home in Minnesota, they launched something called Touch Talks. Just 5 minutes a day where staff sat beside each resident, held their hand and listened. One woman named Betty, 87, who'd lost her husband and most of her friends, told the program lead after a session, "I don't feel invisible anymore." That's what touch does. It reminds people they exist, that they matter, that someone sees them. And in a world where seniors often feel forgotten, that matters more than we know. Lastly, touch restores dignity and humanity. This is perhaps the most powerful point of all. In hospitals or care settings, older adults are often poked, prodded, bathed, moved, not gently but functionally. And they start to feel like objects, not people. But respectful, intentional touch, like a hand held during a hard moment, reminds them they're still human, still worthy of tenderness. I remember Emmett, a 90-year-old man in hospice in Canada. Stoic, ex-military, barely spoke. But the hospice nurse, James, would place his hand on Emmett's shoulder each morning and say, "Good to see you, sir." One morning, Emmett looked up and whispered, "Thank you for touching me like I still matter." That stayed with me because when everything else is fading, mobility, memory, even speech, what remains is the deep human need to be cared for, to be touched with respect. So, those are 6 very real, very powerful ways touch heals us after 70. It lowers blood pressure, satisfies the skin's hunger, boosts the immune system, sharpens the mind, eases loneliness, and restores dignity. And every single one of those truths is backed not just by science, but by people. Real seniors whose lives were changed, even extended, by something as simple and profound as a gentle touch. If you're listening to this, whether you're a caregiver, a family member, or a senior yourself, remember this: it's never too late to reach out. Sometimes the best medicine isn't in a bottle, it's in your hands. You might be wondering, if touch is that powerful, that healing, then why is it missing from so many lives after 70? Why do our elders go days, sometimes weeks, without a single kind hand laid upon them? The truth isn't cruel on purpose, but it is cold. Over time, something in our culture began to drift. Families moved apart, care became professionalized, and somewhere along the way, touch got lost in the shuffle. Let's break this down one reason at a time. First, modern Western culture has grown physically distant. In countries like the US, Canada, and parts of Europe, personal space is seen as a form of respect. Don't hug unless invited, don't touch unless necessary. That might work in a busy city, but it leaves seniors starving for connection. We've medicalized aging so much that the human part, the affection, the warmth, gets treated like an optional extra. In Italy or Spain, grandmothers still kiss their grandkids on both cheeks, even in their 90s. In the US, I've heard seniors say they haven't had a hug in months. I spoke to Daniel, a retired engineer in Chicago, 74 years old. "My kids visit twice a year," he said. "We talk, we eat, they're kind, but they never hug me goodbye." I don't think they even realized. That moment stayed with me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so normal. We've raised generations who equate affection with awkwardness. But for seniors, it's not awkward, it's oxygen. Second, senior care systems are built more for safety than for comfort. And I say this with respect for every hardworking nurse and caregiver out there, many of whom give far more than they're paid for. But the reality is, most elder care systems focus on fall prevention, medication schedules, and task checklists. Not touch, not closeness, not presence. I remember touring a well-funded facility in southern Germany. Clean halls, nice food, but during lunch I watched a caregiver rush past an elderly man who had been trying to get her attention for 5 minutes. Not for help, but just to ask her to sit for a moment. She smiled and said, "Later, Mr. Klein." But later never came. I spoke with him afterward. "I miss when nurses had time to hold your hand," he told me, looking out the window. And that's just it. It's not that people don't care, it's that the system doesn't leave space for care that isn't charted on paper. Third, many adult children feel uncomfortable initiating touch with aging parents. Now this one's hard to admit, but I've seen it firsthand. Somewhere in the aging process, roles reverse. The child becomes the helper, the parent becomes fragile. And with that shift comes fear. Fear of doing the wrong thing, of overstepping, of not knowing what's appropriate. But the truth is, most elderly parents are craving those little moments. I sat with a woman named Grace, 88 years old, in Manchester, UK. Her daughter brought her groceries once a week. They had a good relationship, but Grace confided, "I just wish she'd brush my hair again. She used to when I was in the hospital. It made me feel like her mom again." That broke my heart. Something as small as brushing someone's hair can carry more emotional weight than 1,000 words. But if we don't normalize that, if we don't talk about how okay it is to be physically gentle with our aging loved ones, we lose a whole layer of connection. Fourth, many seniors stop asking for touch because they fear becoming a burden. That's the one no one wants to say out loud. The older we get, the more we feel like we're taking up space. We already need help walking, remembering, dressing. So asking for something as non-essential as a hug, it feels like too much. But it's not, it's basic, essential. A Wright Herald, an 82-year-old former pilot I met in Arizona, said this to me one afternoon. "I used to ask for hugs, but people seemed so busy I stopped. Now I just wait and hope someone remembers I'm still here." No one should have to hope for that. And yet many do. The silence of seniors is not from a lack of need, but from a fear of being rejected. Or even worse, pitied. Fifth, technology, while helpful, has replaced presence with convenience. FaceTime is great, so are texts. But no video call can replace the warmth of a real hug. We live in an era where checking in means sending an emoji, where a thinking of you message is sent while standing in line for coffee. But physical presence, the kind that lets you hold a hand or rest your arm around someone's shoulder, takes effort. It takes time. And sadly, many people have stopped making that time. I met Pauline, 79, in a small town in Ireland. Her son lives abroad. They video chat every Sunday. "I see his face more than I ever did when he lived nearby," she joked. But then her voice softened. "Still, I'd trade 10 video calls for one real hug." We've confused connection with contact. They are not the same. And finally, we don't teach the next generation to value touch as a language of love. We teach them not to touch. We say, "Give grandma a kiss," but never explain why. Or worse, we stop saying it altogether. I was at a park one day and saw a little boy reach for his grandfather's hand. And the grandpa gently pulled away, saying, "You're too old for that." I wanted to walk over and say, "No, you're never too old." That boy might grow up thinking touch is something you outgrow. But let me tell you, we never outgrow it. Not at 60, not at 80, not at 100. So now you're probably wondering, what can we do? How do we bring touch back into our lives? Especially for those over 70 who may feel like the world has forgotten how to reach for them. Let me tell you this, the solution is not complicated. It doesn't require a government program or some new app. What it requires is intention, willingness, and maybe the courage to be the one who reaches first. The first thing we can do is create daily moments of intentional touch. If you live with a senior, start small. A hand on the back when you pass them in the kitchen. A gentle squeeze of the hand while you talk. If you're visiting someone in a care home, don't just sit and talk across the room. Sit beside them, hold their hand, stroke their shoulder. Make it normal again. I remember Carol, a 68-year-old retired nurse in Toronto, who began visiting her elderly neighbor Alice every Thursday. She said, "At first I just brought tea, but then one day Alice reached for my hand while laughing. That moment changed everything. From that point on, they made it a ritual, holding hands during their chats." Carol said, "It felt like the kind of connection I didn't even know I was missing." That's what I mean by intention. It's not about dramatic gestures. It's about letting touch become part of how we speak without words. Second, we need to talk openly about the need for touch, especially with our aging parents. Many of them won't ask, not because they were raised to be strong, to never be a burden. But if we say at first, "Dad, would it be okay if I hugged you more often?" we give permission for that wall to come down. I know a man named Jeff, 52, who told me he hadn't hugged his mother in years. He assumed she wasn't the affectionate type. Then one night she fell ill, and when he wrapped his arms around her at the hospital, she whispered, "I've missed this more than you know." That moment changed their relationship forever. Don't wait for illness. Don't wait for goodbyes. Say it now. Ask first if you need to, but say it. Third, for those of us who are seniors ourselves, don't be afraid to ask. I know it feels awkward sometimes, but you'd be surprised how many people would offer a warm embrace if they simply knew it mattered. I met Bernard, 81, in Colorado. He started something small in his apartment building, a hello hug policy in the hallway. If someone was open to it, they'd wear a small pin that said, "Hugs welcome." Within weeks, 10 people joined in, then 20. It changed the whole energy of the building, Bayer told me. We don't talk as much about politics or the weather anymore. We talk about how we're doing, all because someone had the courage to open that door. Fourth, bring back physical presence, especially in caregiving. Whether you're a nurse, a volunteer, or just a son or daughter helping out, don't underestimate the healing power of a simple touch. You don't need to be trained in massage therapy, just be present. One caregiver I spoke to, Lila in California, made it her practice to end every shift with one hand hold per resident. "I call it my silent goodbye," she said. "Sometimes they don't speak, but they squeeze back. And that's all the answer I need." That's what presence looks like. Not rushing, not fixing, just being there, hand in hand. And finally, let's teach the next generation that touch is a gift, not a risk. Hug your grandchildren. Let them see that affection doesn't stop at a certain age. Invite them to sit close, to cuddle, to rub lotion on grandma's hands, or help grandpa put on his coat. These moments matter. They remember it, and it becomes part of how they grow up understanding love. I saw a young boy once, maybe 8 years old, place a blanket over his great-grandfather's shoulders and kiss his bald head gently. No one told him to. He just did it. His mother teared up and said, "He does that every time. I think he just feels it's the right thing." That's because someone modeled it for him. Let's be the ones who model it for the next. So maybe now, next time you see your mother or your neighbor or the man sitting alone on the park bench, you won't just smile and wave. Maybe you'll sit beside them. Maybe you'll hold their hand. Maybe you'll give them a hug. And that one small gesture could be the thing that changes their whole day or their whole week. Touch is not just a memory from youth. It's a lifeline in old age. At Elderly Reflections, we believe in honoring the quiet wisdom of our elders, in listening to the soft voices that still carry powerful truths, in remembering that sometimes the most important life lessons don't come from textbooks, but from hands held across a table. If this message touched you, I hope you'll like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs it. Because every time we spread stories like this, we make the world a little more human. And I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Type it in the comments below. Let's build this community together.